Hey everyone, welcome to How Shit Works, a rose by any name. Tonight we're going to discuss what happens after you step down as Crown of Meridies, from the moment you take the big hats off for the rest of your time in the SCA and how things work. I'm one of your hosts, Graf Ulrich. I'm a knight, a pelican, and a royal peer. As always, I'm joined by my tag team partner, the feline chevalier himself, my co-host, Sir Erik. Whose feed has frozen. So that's Sir Erik Martell, Knight of Kittens, Bringer of Joy. And we would both like to welcome you to the show. Normally he would get the honor of introducing tonight's guest, but I will. Tonight's guests are the subject matter experts, three amazing women and fantastic roses of Meridies. Her Royal Majesty Ysmay, Greifynja Ælfgifu, and Countess Ashildr.
Actually obligated every time I introduce myself. Hey.
Ladies, would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Ysmay, Queen of Meridies, and I am a royal peer. This will be our second time on the throne. Well, it is our second time on the throne, and that will be. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Your Excellency Ælfgifu.
Hi, I'm Greifynja Ælfgifu. I've chosen the Norse title that is equal to Countess. The picture that His Excellency Ulrich put up as a teaser was a very special day, and I was not really myself. Normally, if you see me at an event, I look like this. Because I'm usually in the kitchen or I'm usually working somewhere where I'm going to be hot. I am a royal peer, I am a pelican, and I am one of the older royal peers, certainly the oldest in this panel. I reigned from 1990 with my husband, 1998 to 1999. So I was princess for Gulf Wars and queen for Lilies and Penzance. That's me.
Your Excellency Ashildr.
Oh, I finally got in. I had to do some updates. Sorry. I was trying to join on my phone. I'm Ashildr. I would say I'm a transplant, but I've been here 15 years, which is 15 of the 25 years I've been in the SCA. I'm a fighter. I reigned in 2004 to 2005. And so I guess I'm the middle child here.
Well, welcome to the show. I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm big fans of all of you. I hope you all know that. So I hope you all got a chance to watch the earlier episodes. The Big Day, Heirs apparently, and the Big Hats. Which cover what happens when you win crown lists, what happens when you're heirs, and what happens when you're crowned, respectively. So if you guys got a chance to watch those, was there anything that you felt like we missed or anything that you wanted to add?
I made notes.
Excellent. Give us some notes.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
So one of the things, this is all heirs and when you're sitting crown. I don't really have a poker face. And I just don't have one at all, really. So it was very hard, and I had to learn very quickly how to hold my face so that I didn't look like I was scowling or in shock or all of those things. So that was something that I didn't consider that, but it was very, very, a very important thing to do. When he won, I was in shock. And I was barefoot. And back in those days, you didn't go to the tea. You went directly to meetings because the list usually lasted forever. And I had no idea what to do. And Duchess Katrina found my shoes and put them on me like I was a toddler. So I would recommend to anybody watching this, if you're being fought for in Crown, please put your shoes on before the finals because you're really going to be embarrassed if you're barefoot and he wins. And the receiving line, I don't remember if Ashildr, did you guys have a receiving line? Because we didn't have a receiving line. It was like, yay, congratulations, now go get busy.
I think we did, but I couldn't tell you what anybody said during it.
There you go. And again, because we were, back in the dark ages, we didn't have any contracts. We didn't have to sign out anything. We pretty much just went to the trailer and got what we needed and put it in our trailer and drove off.
We had a list, so it wasn't much after you, but we had a list that we had to sign.
I think we had an inventory that we had to go through. But it wasn't a rental contract or a lease, or when we didn't have to pay $1 or anything like that. We just signed that this is what we were taking, but there wasn't any sort of
formal.
You just assumed you were just responsible for this stuff, and we live in Glen Reese, so we had Duchess Caroline and Mr. Samisha, so there really wasn't any chance for us to do anything bad. Because even if the kingdom forgave us, they probably wouldn't have. So yep. One thing that we did, you asked in the Big Hat, I think, show, you asked what was something that you did that you were proud of as Crown.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And we froze.
No.
Well, she did awesome things.
She did awesome things. It's great. We'll unless either of the two of you have notes, we'll skip to the next question.
No, I think you guys did a great job covering a lot of the things. I mean, having been crowned in 2017 and from that to this point, things have pretty much been the same for us. So right. Everything kind of was covered. You guys have done a great job.
Excellent. Thank you, Mitch. All right. So the next question was supposed to be Sir Baron Erik's, but be mine. So it's okay. It's the fun of a live show. So let's talk what happens the day you step down after you've taken off the big hats. You've died. You've gone off to crusade. Whatever the case may have been. Tell us what the process of the rest of that next little bit about the rest of. You finished last court. What's the process for first court like? You get your royal peerage, you get your rose, you swear fealty, all that stuff, and probably between courts, you get for the first time to go to the bathroom by yourself.
I ran to the bathroom. I took off running out of that little beautiful building at Dalwhinnie, and I said, "I'm free!" And ran to the bathroom by myself. It was awesome. And then I poured myself a big drink. By myself.
As is right and proper, Your Majesty.
Yeah, do you feel like there's a theme here? We enjoyed doing things by ourselves that day.
Right.
It was awesome. That day, I got to see my best friend become Queen of Meridies. So that day was really special. We had beautiful coronets that were made for us, beautiful scrolls that were done. They had a beautiful ceremony. That whole day was so memorable. We just had a fantastic time getting to swear fealty with my husband towards, the new crown of Meridies and be the first people to put our hands on the sword. That was really moving from being on the opposite end, because we were the ones that had been saying the oath of fealty prior to that, and then to come in and be on the receiving end of it was very, very cool.
I really loved serving at feast that night, which I'm not sure that was is that a solid Meridian tradition now? Ælfgifu, is that? I know I've seen it done intermittently.
Yeah, we did it. Again, Glen Ree, that's what you did. You stepped down, you immediately served the next crown, because that was what you were supposed to do. I haven't been to every coronation since then, so I don't know if it's intermittent, as you said, but it's always been.
I just love the gesture. I think it's so clear and nice to.
Yes. Well, it's sort of like, our heirs, we were not on the best of terms with our heirs, and so it was even more important for us to show the kingdom that even though we disagreed on a profound level, that they were still crowned, and we needed to pay homage to the crown, even if the people wearing them weren't really good people.
All right. So you've kind of alluded to some of what the next question was, which was, what was the rest of the day like after first court? So you got feast. You're not sitting at high table usually. You've got the rose ball. How does that all work?
Well, as the oldest rose in this room, I will tell you that it's really hard to go to the rose ball sometimes, because sometimes it doesn't start till 11 o'clock at night. And I'm a pumpkin by then, and I'm certainly not aware enough to be able to dance too. So, but the roses, we are, before Her Majesty became queen, she was our fearless secretary. And we are trying to figure out how to have the ball earlier so that all of us can participate, rather than, going to bed, taking a nap after feast and then trying to get back up and go to the ball and be sparkly and all of those things. So, but pretty much it was just after we got our counties, it was our whole household pretty much just went back to the cabin and proceeded to get completely altered.
Like you do.
Yeah, like you do.
The Rose Ball is some it's a really fun way to support the local group, to support the dancing folks and the people that play music. So I really do love that. And as Ælfgifu said, we are working towards, when we start eventing again, trying to figure out a way to have that ball a little earlier, so that our early risers aren't up all day long. And coronation it's a busy day.
It's a big day,
not just for the ones that are stepping down and the ones that are stepping up, but it's busy for everybody. Like, most royal peers really work hard during that particular event. So I think it's something that will hopefully get figured out, so we can have more attendance at those.
All right. Thank you. So moving through the timeline, coronation is over. What's that first couple of weeks like after coronation? When you've spent a year being clued in on everything that's going on in the kingdom on an almost daily basis now that we have Facebook. And so you've gone from every day you're getting input or questions or something someone's asking you something, to all of a sudden a week, no one's asking you anything other than hey, what did you guys do with the other crowns or whatever.
I personally, being a protege, when I'm not queen, I have a helium hand. So when I didn't have things to put on my plate, as Ælfgifu mentioned, I put things on my plate like becoming the secretary or doing the Kingdom Chatelaine position. So I got bored, honestly. I felt a little out of the loop, which it turned out to be fine. But yeah, my husband was over there like, stop, you can't do more things.
Okay. I totally
I was waiting for Ashildr, but she didn't say anything. Again, my experiences are so much different than even Ashildr's and Her Majesty's, because we didn't have internet. We had some email, but it was still sketchy and it was not official. So everything was paper. And a lot of times when you go to coronation, there are still some files that sometimes don't get to the new crown. And so the next couple of weeks, there's a lot of phone calls and a lot of, hey, do you remember when you saw this last? Do you remember what file this is in? Why did you give me all the archived recommendation letters? Well, because they don't belong to us anymore. They belong to you. Well, we don't want to take care of them. I'm sorry. It's not my job anymore. So there was a lot of bring as much stuff as you can to coronation. And then if the newly coronated crown doesn't have space for everything, then you have to arrange for delivery at a later date and all that kind of mess. So our experience was a little bit different, but for me, it was bliss. It was bliss. We got all the mess out of our house, or we reclaimed our garage. We, we got all of our underwear washed and put away. I mean, it was just, it was reclaiming our regular lives. So it was nice.
I had a lot of guilt kind of afterward, because I'd gone from somebody that went to events to fight pretty much all the time to somebody that had fought some but had stopped fighting because there was a whole bunch of other stuff we had to do. And then suddenly I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. And I really felt guilty for weeks. Like, they won't know how to do this without me. Oh, it turns out they do. It turns out the next crown can probably handle it just like you did. But I had a lot of misplaced guilt because suddenly I could do what I wanted.
I can understand that. Certainly something that's not Rose specific there. So we kind of let this alone earlier. We've just been talking about the roses, but as we all know, it's a team effort getting to that point once you get to step down. But we only have roses consorts on the show, and that's intentional. And here's the part where I'm going to sit as the only sovereign here, former sovereign. I'm going to speak up. So we get a cool hat. We get to swear fealty earlier. Occasionally people ask us for advice a little earlier. Maybe, just maybe, in some circles, our in other places, our word carries a little more weight. But for the most part, other than that, we get better pickups than we ever got before. More high-end pickups on the pickup field. More pressure in tourneys occasionally. But you guys get a job, in my opinion. You get a job for the rest of your time in the STA. And most of the rest of this show is going to cover that, if that's okay. And I think that you guys don't get enough credit for that sometimes. Most people think that, I've heard it said, that, oh, well, they just happen to be, they got the hat and they got there because they happen to be attached to the right person. And it doesn't matter what your affiliation is. You guys have done a job that entire time, and then you step down and you get another job. And I want to say thank you for that straight away.
You're welcome.
But now that I've asked that, I'm going to go ahead and ask about the next elephant in the room. The Order of the Rose in several kingdoms comes with a patent. In some kingdoms, just royal peerages come with a patent. In Meridies, neither of those things is true. Please understand that I'm not trying to cause problems with this question, but it came up in the populist questions twice. I was actually going to take it out once we didn't have much to say about it, but I felt like the kingdom wanted to know. So we have 3 lovely roses here. So I just thought I'd give you a chance to speak to that and tell you and why and how you feel about things.
Ælfgifu, you want to go first?
Of course, Your Majesty. I'm gonna channel Ak a little bit here. He and I yeah, okay. He and I agree on this, I believe. In Meridies, we don't have a patent for royal peerage because, as a general rule, we treat our royal peers as a peerage. The respect, even when I don't have my coronet on or even my pelican medallion, I am treated with the same amount of respect as when I do have my coronet on and I do have all my regalia on. And I believe that I don't think that is specific to Meridies. I think there are other kingdoms that do that as well, but I don't see the need. If you have comported yourself properly and with the kingdom in mind during your reign, you will receive all of the respect due that royal peerage. And for those who think it needs to have a patent, I would say get your butt busy, get in a track, and get a bestowed peerage. Done. I mean, it is a job. Being queen is a job. Being king is a job. And if you do it well, it's hard work. And there is a little bit of a bonus at the end. You get a coronet, you get a title. But other than that, the job well done should be enough, in my opinion. And those that don't feel that way perhaps have a problem with the job they did.
Your Excellency Ashildr?
I think I'm in a very different position than Her Excellency, and I disagree. This may be because I'm from the East and the Mid, and that's my historic, but there has been a bunch of historic meridian treatment of royal peers as, oh, you're totally peers, but you're not. Culminating in meetings that are bestowed peers only, all the bestowed peers of the kingdom, but not the royal peers. I have not earned a bestowed peerage. I can't comment on that because I don't know anything about it. I don't have one. But being crowned is difficult. And when we go to other kingdoms, they do not treat us the same as bestowed peerages. Especially like my friends in the mid-realm, I have household brothers and sisters that are royal peers there that have their patent. They do not view us the same. And I don't agree with that. I think if you've survived a reign, you've probably earned your patent. It's not saying that Ælfgifu is wrong in her opinion, because she's obviously not.
That's fine.
I disagree. But I'm often the only non-peer at a table, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're a royal peer. You're of course a peer." I'm like, "But I'm not a bestowed peer, and I don't have a patent, so I'm not actually a peer. I'm a squire, but I'm not a peer. I don't feel like a peer personally."
Okay, that has never been. I've never experienced that. But then I don't go out of kingdom, and I don't have friends who are royal peers who would say anything like that to me. I mean, I don't know. We have friends in Palantir who are dukes and duchesses. We have friends in the Outlands who are dukes and duchesses, and nobody's ever said that to me. So I'm at a completely different, come from a completely different angle, and I can see where that would be very, very awkward. And I agree with you that having a successful reign is worthy of a patent. But then how do you decide who was successful and who wasn't? If the kingdom didn't burn down, is that successful? If only 6 people got banished, is that successful? If you managed to knit the schism, is that successful? How do you determine who gets a patent and who doesn't without diluting that patent?
And that's fair, but you were always a peer. You were a peer before.
No, ma'am.
You were not.
No,
okay.
ma'am. I had a grant of arms.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not elevated to the Pelican until 2 years
2000.
later.
2000. The night I got my AOA.
Yeah. And hell froze over. It snowed in Birmingham.
That's true. It did. We had tornadoes. We had thunderstorms. We had thunder snow.
Yep.
And we had almost a blizzard that whole weekend. Oh, and it was almost 70 the day before.
Right. Yeah.
I'm actually in the middle of both of these lovely ladies. I think, just like you had said before, Ulrich, that this being a rose is a job that we have for the rest of the time that we're going to be playing in the SCA. That's how I take the role. And of course, not everyone is going to take it that seriously. Some people stop playing after they, have won a crown list. Some people take steps back. I am a protege, which means I'm not a bestowed peer. And I will have been a royal peer twice because my husband, fought in a crown list. But I can assure you that during that reign, I was doing a lot of award recommendations and working on court prep and things that, like, maybe His Majesty wasn't doing. I was putting that effort in. So that part of the workload during a reign can fall definitely into the Rose's hand, the Queen's hand. And then, I think if we can survive a pandemic, I'm just praying that that makes a successful reign. I really do think that for me, it's not a big deal. I'm on a path to a peerage that hopefully one day I will be a bestowed peer that comes with a patent. But I do think that the amount of work that a rose does for the longevity of the time that she's in the SCA, she or he is in the SCA, is definitely worthy of a patent. So that's where I'm at. I'm in the middle. I feel like it doesn't make a difference to me, but I think that that many roses are deserving of one for sure when they step down.
Follow that, Erik.
All right, thanks.
Oh,
So, we talked a little bit about what happens on the big day, but now I'd like to talk a little bit about what might be your first on-duty day for a rose, which is crown list. If you would, please tell us about your duties on that day. Most people probably know you stand with the consorts of the finalists, and most people probably know that you have the rose tea. What are those conversations like, and what are the rose duties there?
We don't necessarily stand with the finals unless Her Majesty invites us. By the way,
right. That's what I was
generally
going to say.
does. She doesn't always have to.
Right, and she doesn't always. I mean, there have been times when the roses assembled haven't stood with everybody or with the finalists. I know that I have personally, if someone looks completely lost, I've gone to stand just as a don't fall over, please.
As a show
But,
of solidarity.
Yeah, exactly. You've got somebody in your corner. I promise I'll put on your shoes. But other than that, there hasn't been a herd. I remember very few times when Her Majesty sent runners, messengers to say, "Hey, get ready. It's fixing to be the finals. We're going to go stand with the possible consorts." So
I love that happens, actually, because I think that it shows that that we're going to be together and we're going to be supportive of whoever gets that role.
Yes, I agree.
And so what are the conversations like at the Rose Tea? What don't we know about those?
My first Rose Tea was so very interesting. I'm not going to give up all of that information, but I will tell you that Elegant got me a little lit off of some peanut butter chocolate. They were like Reese's shots. Yeah. And then something with sugar cookie vodka in it. And it helped me definitely, because you've gone through that whole thing where you just had your consort win crown lists. Oh my God, the hardest racing. I'm just going to be super honest. I got stone cold sober when His Majesty won crown list the first time. I had been kind of day drinking all day long, just kind of mingling with people. And then we're standing up there at the finals and the last blow gets struck and Duke Baru falls down. And I'm like, holy crap, we just won, and stone cold sober. So I appreciated something to kind of help me relax and to be able to take in all of the information from the other roses. I don't know if that's how y'all's Rose Teas went. It was very fun.
I wish Elegant had been around for mine, because mine was very formal and I was.
Yes, yours looked like a deer in the headlight. Yes. And I'm sorry for that. I really am. I wish I could have made that better for you, but I was struggling myself. Oh man.
So the Rose Teas, though, to answer your question, Eric, are they're generally full of women and men. If in other kingdoms we haven't had a male consort yet, but they're full of women who have lived in in your seat, and they have lots of information to give you, and they're willing to give it. And it's a great opportunity to socialize with them and try to get their thoughts on what you're fixing to get into. And it's helpful. Even I'll say that my first Rose Tea and my second Rose Tea were very different, because I had been out of the circle, like you would say. I've been out of like the loop of getting all that information for 2 years. And so coming back in to getting all the things that had happened over the course of that 2 years, it made those Rose Teas a little bit of a different story.
Thank you very much. I believe Ulrich has a question based on a subject that's near and dear to my heart.
I do. So I've seen Roses do all kinds of things at events. Like I said, you guys are always doing something to help the kingdom, to help generally in some way, shape, or form. You do a lot of fundraising for various kinds of worthy causes. Is this an internal drive, or do people approach you? And how do you get on that list, or what do you guys look at to do that kind of stuff?
I think Her Majesty is best equipped to answer that question, since she has most recently been our secretary.
I would be happy to answer that question. So I actually didn't realize that the Roses did this until obviously I became a Rose, and someone approached me and asked me, if I had a charity in mind that I wanted to do a fundraiser for. And it was one of the Roses that asked me. So in my opinion, this is an internal thing that we do. And it's usually a charity that is near and dear to the Queen's heart, whoever the Queen is going to be. We've done the most recent charity thing that we did was for Children's Hospital of Atlanta, and it was Countess Morgan. She chose a organization, I think it was had to do with video games, Play. I think that I might be misspeak. Child's Play. Yes, thank you. It's called Child's Play, and we raised over $500 walking around asking for donations, and we were able to give that money, and that particular charity takes the money and donates it to the Children's Hospital of Atlanta to get the kids that are hospitalized to be able to have them play games. And I have a very personal, story with this, because I didn't know about Children's Hospital of Atlanta until that fundraiser. And not 6 months later, I found myself in that hospital with my son when he had his head injury and a skull fracture. And it's like it came full circle. And it really, really touched my heart that that was introduced to me, and that we were able to reap a little bit of the benefit of that particular thing. And so now I'm gung ho. I'm like, let's get on with the charitable organizations and try to do all the good things for helping all the people, children, people that are just needy. So it is an internal drive. I'm sorry for rambling, but it's something that each Queen gets to choose on their own behalf.
It's fine. Rambling's perfectly okay on this show.
My memory is terrible, but Countess Kisa, was it at a Gulf Wars, or was it at a Crown List? I don't remember when it was, but she came to us and said, I'd really like to do a fundraiser, but not necessarily money. She is connected with Save Your Tatas. Yep. Which is an organization in Chattanooga that provides undergarments and outer garments for women who are trying to get back on their feet and have job interviews. And apparently they have a lot more success with getting appropriate clothes for job interviews, but not necessarily the undergarments that make those clothes fit, nicely. And so, gosh, Ashildr, how many bras did we get? I mean,
Many. I thought it was 150.
Yeah, I think we got 150 on site, and then people kept sending. I know I did for the next 6 months, because I had put feelers out in my hometown, and I had people, dropping off book boxes full of undergarments. So, it's not always a monetary thing. Sometimes it's a supply thing. We've done smaller drives for school supplies, for all kinds of things. So sometimes it's driven by the Queen, and sometimes, like at the Rose Tourney at Gulf Wars, it's we get together and decide, what are we going to try to support this year? So it just depends.
That particular fundraiser from Kisa was at MGT.
It was.
Oh, MGT. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun one. I thought that was.
It was. Now my ears are turning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting all day. She was right beside my pavilion. So my pavilion all day, and all the pictures beside from that angle, there are these pictures of these bras.
Yeah.
Bras sitting out.
Did we decorate the pavilion with bras hanging down? I think.
You did.
So, yeah. Yeah.
The best kind of banner, really.
Hey, whatever.
I believe Graf Ulrich and I both had the opportunity and the very great honor to fight in a Rose Tourney. We've all seen them at Gulf Wars, Lilies, or Pinzix. Tell us a little bit about those, specifically what you look for in a champion.
Ashildr, you're it.
I'm laughing because a lot of times I think the other fighters are like another fighter, because I normally have to track somebody down, pin them down, and make them volunteer. I know that's not always the experience, but that's normally mine. Like, hey, do you want to fight in the rose tourney? Because I think you should probably be showing off.
My experience is a little bit different. I don't go and seek them out. I sponsored one of Robert Squire's, year in, year out, just to get them more exposure and get them, in a tourney with vastly different types of fighters and that sort of thing. And the year that I sponsored Godwin before he was elevated, he's one of the best fighters I've ever watched in his day, and he could not kill his opponent in the finals, and he was so angry that I realized that I was not doing the Squires a service by putting them in this situation that was untenable. So for many years, I did not sponsor anybody because I was not willing to crush the honor and the chivalry of the fighter that I asked to fight for me. It's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better. And that's one of my most proudest, the moment I'm proudest of is when Lethren, as queen, stood at the corner of one of the fields and just stood there demanding proper blow calling and that sort of thing. And I went and I stood next to her. And then other roses came and stood. And pretty soon we had not just Meridian roses, but we had roses from other kingdoms coming to stand. And that was sort of a turning point for the behavior at that tourney. And I think it's much better now. But, with the pandemic, I'm hoping that when we get back to events and when we have a rose tourney at Gulf Wars, that we haven't backslid into poor behavior. So I am very careful about who I sponsor and am very clear about what I expect from them. And it's not necessarily you must win at all costs.
And Your Majesty, do you have thoughts on this?
My thoughts have evolved throughout the time that I have been a rose. I started off, of course, trying to find the person that I thought would win, that I thought that would do Meridier's, justice. And we kind of changed the tournament format. That was actually one of the things that got brought up in my rose tea, was that the tournament had kind of gone south, and we weren't sure if we really wanted to host it anymore. And we were kind of trying to all gather together and get info and try to figure out a way to make it happen. So we did. We came up with a new format, and I thought it worked out very well for Gulf Wars. We had all the roses around. Everyone was engaged. And then the fighters were not. It wasn't just about winning. It was about who was comporting themselves well on the field. And then now I'm kind of gone away from the who do I think can win to what else are you doing for the kingdom? And then maybe let's see if we can bolster you up. And so that was kind of how I chose my my person from last year, that the Gulf Wars that we didn't get to have, but is rescheduled for October. Will hopefully be able to happen. But I kind of had a little thing that we put out there to try to engage people to do some of the fighters to do other stuff, including arts, service. So we had a little competition that went down, and we had a lot of people, a lot of fighters, awesome fighters complete the challenge. They served feasts, they entered A&S competitions. it was just really, really cool to see them doing other things in the SCA and kind of building a well-rounded character. That was kind of my goal. So it's kind of just changed, and we'll see. It'll probably evolve continuously over the next couple of years. So,
thank you very much, Your Majesty. I believe Sir Ulrich has a question about one of my favorite events.
So first off, I want to say right quick about the Rose Tourney. I love your challenge, your challenge to be able to fight in it. The serve, to do all those things. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Ashildr, if you ever have a problem finding a fighter, come find me. I'll make sure you have a fighter that you'll be proud of.
I mean, often I'm like, who wants to go fight in this tomorrow? Somebody, I can sponsor you.
We can find you somebody, not a problem. All right. So my favorite event, personally, as Erik said, the Roses host the Great Weapons Tourney at MGT. But you also usually host a little salon with it. You do little other things at the event, more than just host that one tournament. What's that day like for you? Especially like, a little bit for you, Ashildr, too, because you're also fighting in the tourney, usually. Ashildr?
If you want to fight, it's a really rough day. I don't believe in fighting in our actual tournament to fight, but I do try to do the buys every year. But we provide a prize for our tournament. We do a salon during our tournament. We provide refreshments, and often we have 8 to 10 roses or so available. So it's a very busy day. As I imagine anybody that's part of any of the orders that sponsors a tournament, it's a very busy day. And if you're part of more than one, it's a really busy day.
Yes, it is. You need a nap at some point. Because you have the Rose Tourney, and then I'm a member of the Bow, and that's in the afternoon. And it's
busy day.
It's busy. It really is. It's busy. And, heaven forfend if you're trying to serve something that needs any kind of finishing in the kitchen or anything like that, or your ice has failed. It's a challenge.
Not good.
I'd like to point out that this last MGT that we missed, that we couldn't have because of the pandemic, the high that day was 73.
You could just be quiet now.
And the high was 98.
I think one of my favorite things about the Rose Tournament is that it's the Great Weapon Tournament.
Yes.
And the Great Weapons Tournament, I don't really know how to say this without sounding...
Say it.
I'm going to say it, but I would have to preface it with just saying that I'm not saying that this happens in this tournament. But when you think of great weapons, often there is a lot of hard hitting that happens, and sometimes people may not feel the hits, or sometimes blows might not get called. And so I love that the Roses have that tournament, because we stand around the field, and I'm telling you, we're judging you. We want to make sure that this tournament is fought with honor and dignity, and that you're comporting yourself well on the field. So I absolutely love it, and I love that we are sponsors of it. And recently we made some, we started doing some other stuff, trying to find whoever, comported themselves the best throughout the whole tournament day. That was something that was the last MGP. And I just think that that's something that we can really bring as Roses, we can bring to the table that other groups are not able to do. I said it.
There you go. I love it. No, I think that's part of the reason the Roses have that training.
Follow along with Her Majesty. Great weapons aren't a normal weapon style for most fighters. Sword and board, maybe a pole arm or a glaive, but the two-handed sword and those sorts of things, we don't see a lot of that in tournaments unless it's specific, that's what you have to fight with. So I think for me, a lot of times there's a lot of humor with the fighters who are it's obvious it's not their bailiwick, but they're going to give it a shot. And I enjoy that part too. I enjoy the goofiness and the humor that goes along with fighting a weapon style that is not your swerve. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your answer. I particularly appreciate the judgy aspect of that tourney, and I will therefore be looking forward to seeing the judginess as it spreads out over the field. Now,
Erik loves some judginess.
We'll offer snacks while we're judging. There's snacks.
Yeah. We have good snacks.
We have a few populous questions that have already been submitted, so we're going to go ahead and ask those before we get to the questions from the live feed that Graf Ulrich will handle. And the first one is for Countess Ashildr. So as a fighter, how have things changed for you as a royal peer? And that was asked by Anonymous.
Let me tell you the absolute worst thing ever. Royal peers are worth 87 points. Knights are worth 12 points. Squires are worth 5 points. It just automatically assumes that the royal peer is the royal peer who won crown. I think it should be phrased as royal peer who won the crown tournament, because otherwise you're going to be running across a stream at Fool's War with someone yelling at you, you have to be on your knees, you're not a knight.
Who has points?
Royal peers were allowed to cross because they were riding horses, and I kept running across because that was what my team deserved, because I could earn that. And I kept getting called dead by the marshals, and I kept having to yell at the marshals, I'm a royal peer, I'm a royal peer. It's really awful.
That sounds terrible.
And Shep, you can tell the story because it sounds meaner when you say it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
When I was like, I'm a royal peer.
I have no idea.
Okay. I sounded awful and mean, but it was like the fourth time the same guy had called me dead.
What I want to know is where's this point value coming from?
Often scenarios have knights can cross doing X, Y, and Z, and royal peers can do X, Y, and Z. And here's our team. And if you collect a royal peer for your team, they're worth this many points, and you have this many points to spend. There's a lot of times royal peers are worth way more than I'm worth. Because I'm not very good, and yet.
That is not the answer I expected, but thank you for that.
No negging on yourself.
Right. So we're going to go to the next question. And hopefully that will have a little more positive feeling about it. So what do the roses, your opinion of what the roses feel, is their duty to the kingdom, and what role do you play after you step down? And that was asked by Baroness Rondelin.
You want me to take that one?
Yes.
Okay, repeat it again. I didn't have all my listening on.
What do the roses feel is their duty to the kingdom, and what role do you play after you step down?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on who your secretary is. Our Queen Ysmay is, for many reasons, just a jewel. And she is a jewel in the crown of Meridies, and she helps me to remember what I should be doing, what I can do as a rose that I might not be able to do in some other capacity. And I believe that with leadership like hers, either as queen or as secretary or just as, motivating, our duty is to remind the kingdom of its chivalrous nature. Our duty is to help the princess and the queen if they need it, to be a voice of light and wisdom in the darkness, or to be the quiet, not really chastisement, but the quiet reminder that you have a bigger role to play than just being yourself on a Tuesday. So I think all of those things and our comportment as roses is very important to folks that are looking at possibly participating in a crownless or those sorts of things. And so even though we don't sit the throne anymore, we are still by extension representing the royal peers of the kingdom.
Thank you. Would either of the other two of you like to add to that, or do you feel that covered it in your feelings as well?
I think she covered my feeling 100%. Thank you so much for the kind words and the honor that you gave to me just then at Ælfgifu. I feel like I've had so many people in front of me that were able to teach me how to do things. That you, Countess Ashildr, just so many lights in the darkness, as you were saying, to try to help show me the role of the rose. So I would say the same for you. You've definitely inspired.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your answer. We're going to move on to our next question, which was submitted by Mistress Magdalena de Parma, and it is, what, if you can tell us without breaking context, are some of your favorite pieces of advice you give or have heard in the rose piece?
The advice that I feel what worked best for me was to make sure that you don't dedicate your whole entire 6 months. I'm not saying that correctly, but basically designate a day to do SCA because it can very quickly become overwhelming if you are, especially with social media and email. It can very quickly become an overwhelming thing that you're dealing with on a daily basis, and then it loses its luster. So by designating a day to deal with SCA stuff, a day or two, and then you get to go have fun on the weekends, that was probably the best advice that I received during my roast.
Since I'm from before the instant information era, the advice that, and I think it's still relevant, one day of the week, and we picked Monday, one day of the week is no contact, no SCA contact. Watch a movie, don't do your laundry. I mean, nothing SCA related at all. Order a pizza, do whatever, play a board game, whatever. And then the rest of the week, preparations for the next event that you're going to. And of course, in our case, we had to rifle through all the recommendation letters, which I figure you guys do electronically, but it probably takes far less time than going through however many groups worth of recommendation files. But, take one day for real world family, just downtime. And that was a good piece of advice that we received. And I pass that on, every time, is take a day for yourselves. Don't do anything SCA related. And that's how we kept it fresh. And another thing, have 2 sets of underwear. You have a week's worth of underwear in your drawer at home, and then you have a week's worth of underwear, socks, whatever, in your SCA totes or bags or whatever you pack in. And don't touch the in your house underwear. Wash the SCA underwear. That way you've always got clean underwear somewhere. That's the Duchess Caroline, by the way. That's not me.
And Ashildr, did you get any specific advice you'd like to pass on? You did mention that yours was very formal, so.
I think my most important thing that I was told was remember that your retinue, a lot of them are working as much as you are, and they're not getting all the fun stuff. Your chancellor works as many hours as the royals, and they often don't get any credit for the hours they're putting in. So it's important to check that they're doing okay, because if you're stressed out, they're probably even worse.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's done a few turns on retinue, I can appreciate that. Thank you. Now, our final question that we have before we go to the live feed questions. Yes, everyone say hello to Magic. What are your favorite things to be asked to do at events, or just in general as an order? And that was also asked by Grand Crown.
You mean my favorite thing to do as a rose at an event?
That's your favorite thing to be asked to do. Like if you're asked as a rose to do something.
Oh. One of my favorite things as a rose, which equals a royal peer to me, in this sense, is to speak for someone in a ceremony.
Yeah.
That hands down, just one of the biggest honors. You know, just because my husband won attorney and I've got a shiny, somebody thinks enough of me to speak for them as a royal peer at their elevation. That's just the bomb.
Agreed. That I've only got to one time, but it definitely touched my heart, and it was a very memorable day.
Yeah.
I also just like to serve people, and I think that most of the roses do as well. As Ælfgifu said, she's in the kitchen constantly. Ashildr she won't tell you this, but she loves clothes. You don't know, and she will dress you if you let her. And I know that she did help some people find garb when they needed it at an event and dress them up beautifully. And so all of us have our things that we like to dabble in, but I think just being able to serve. So anything service.
She also teaches, by the way. She loves to make cheese, and she teaches cheese making. And she gets really, really interested and interesting when she's talking about cheese.
And fish.
And fish. Yes, fish. Yes. I haven't taken a fish class. I've only taken the cheese class.
Okay, we got fish classes now.
Cool.
Well, thank you, ladies. I believe Graf Ulrich is going to handle the live feed questions now, but I wanted to say thank you for being so generous and great examples in our society. And I also want to encourage everyone to take Countess Ashildr's Stinky Fish class.
Yes, I'm going to. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Are we dropping to the other room now, or are we?
No, we have
2 more questions, I believe.
We're doing really well on time, but I understand that the national championship game is on. If you don't want to hang around, we do have 4 live feed questions. If you'd like to field those.
Sure.
Okay, so the first 2 come from Mistress Adriana. We've kind of answered one of them, but she asks it in a little bit of a different way, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Can you explain the reason behind behind the princess tea, the rose tea's timing, which is usually immediately at the end of the tournament? Why particularly is it there? Do you know? Because Ælfgifu, Her Excellency Ælfgifu pointed out that it didn't wasn't always at that point.
Right. I think because this is just my. I don't really know, but my opinion would be that as we've gotten a better handle on monitoring and controlling the timeline of the actual tournament, then that has made available time for the tea immediately after the tournament, rather than the schedule being so screwed up by these 4 and 5 hour tournaments that there was no time for the tea or that sort of thing. So I think that tournament time management has made the tea immediately after a much more doable thing. And I think it's important. I mean, I'm not a fighter. Never fought. Never. I put a helmet on my head once and went, nope, not for me. But I think the guys, the fighters, they do their own thing after the tourney, and the consort sometimes, if she's not sat before, she's never been on an entourage, or hasn't had any connection with any sort of royalty, she's lost. She is truly gobsmacked, and she needs help. And usually a little food, a little beverage, perhaps a little loosener, and some ladies who mostly try to be kind and help her out. And again, I'm really sorry, Ashildr. Your tea was not the best. Did that answer it?
I think that's a good answer.
Okay.
So Mr. St. John's next question was, what's the hardest thing you did during your reign? And what is the one thing that is the most fun or your fondest memory? I mean, of course, if you can tell us, because a lot of times the hardest things we do in our reigns aren't something we just go, and there was this really hard thing, but I can't talk about it.
I would assume everybody's hard thing is the same, and it's probably a banishment. I mean, no one can talk details, but often it's a person who cared deeply about the SCA but made a very wrong choice. Sometimes it's not, but often it is, and that's a very hard decision. And my absolute favorite was going to super rural Arkansas, which at the time was part of our kingdom. I slept in a kind of terrifying trailer that they had set up for us. I went with a Glen Aubin lady now, and we drove like 12 hours into Arkansas to go to a group that had never had a royal event or royal progress before, and that was super fun. We had a really good time.
So this was the Fort Smith event.
Yeah.
What? They had events in Fort Smith?
That's
where I grew up.
I flew down to Louisiana, and we drove, and it was super far, but they were part of our kingdom, and we were shocked they'd never had a royal progress ever.
Wow.
It was literally like the one event during their reign that I didn't travel with her on.
They did. And they set us up a trailer. It wasn't heated, but we had a trailer.
What a small world. I agree with Ashildr. I think that most of us are, the worst part of a reign is a banishment or 2 or 3 or, my favorite thing, how, some of you might know, but usually for Gulf Wars, because many of us do go to Gulf Wars, being king and queen is a lot of work, and being prince and princess is a lot of fun. So I got to be the princess at Penzik. That was a blast.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. We might have lost our entourage once or twice, or hid, crowns into shoulder bags and went, jumping off on our own. And it was just a blast. It was a breath of fresh air to breathe in right before we were getting ready to step up. So
let's see. I've got 2 things. We didn't have a banishment. I mentioned before that the thing that we did was we put into law that bestowed peers could not be in the grant level polling awards, the bow, the ovo, that sort of thing. And before we did that, we spoke with our heirs, and they assured us that they were on the same page with us, and that at their coronation, our decoronation, they rescinded that law. So that was pretty rough, and that was very, very difficult to get over. The second kind of rough thing was on the night of our coronation. Oh, and this is something else that I say in the rose tea. If you're on site, you're royal. It doesn't matter if it's midnight on your coronation night, like it was with us, and the kingdom seneschal comes and says that there's a problem, that a 3-year-old was left unattended in her tent, and the tent was decorated with nooses and skulls and that sort of thing. And they were close enough to the ground that the child could have gotten tangled up in them, and they were workable nooses. And so we put our guard back on and got up and took care of it. And those people were asked to leave the site, and we immediately started working on wordage that no child under 12 could be left unattended, and that has since gone into society rules. So those are the 2 hard things. The best thing, there were so many good things. I mean, like Ulrich said in another show, giving someone an award and they don't know they're getting it, that is just you feel like you're on the top of the world because you have been allowed the honor of showcasing this person. But probably the best thing was when I lost my mind. I was queen at Penzic. I lost my mind. I scampered up probably 3 hay bales because I was up so high that Celestin could only reach my ankle. And I watched as our kingdom, with the Prashani, who we had secured as mercenaries for us, watch them do the Horn of Africa, that horn movement, and just encompass the other army and just lay them out. And I saw the Meridian banner going across the field, and I was jumping up and down and hollering like I was at a rodeo. I was so excited. All the while Celestin is down below me saying, "Your Majesty, get off the hay bales! Your Majesty, get off the hay bales!" So yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Excellent. Thank you. Those are some good stories. Slightly terrifying about the child, but other than that, really good stories.
Yeah, no, it was Ulrich. It was terrifying. And of course, we're parents, so I looked at it was Erik, Master Erik of Telmark was the Kingdom Seneschal. Okay. And I just looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me?" And Robert immediately threw his arm out in front of me and said, "It's okay. We'll handle this." And I said, "Oh no, I'm coming too." And he said, "But you have to stand back. You cannot go after them." Because I was ready.
Let the Seneschal do his job.
Yep.
All right. So the next question comes from His Majesty Timothy.
Lord.
All right. That was worth it.
Yeah.
I think this mainly may be for Ashildr, which is, do associates in other kingdoms, squires, proteges, etc., who receive a patent with their royal peerage, stop wearing their regalia? He's seen a few Meridies who don their associate regalia once again after stepping down Ashildr, and is curious if it's different elsewhere.
They do often in kingdoms where you receive a patent. They feel that you're already a peer, and so they give up their regalia. And that was actually one of my arguments for why I did not give up my squire's belt afterward. I'm not officially, I know under the rules of Meridies, I'm a peer. Under the East Kingdom and Medron where I grew up, I'm not a peer, so I felt like I could keep my squire's belt. Right. And that's a personal decision. That's not anybody should make these decisions or anything. I personally did not feel that I still do not most of the time feel like I'm a peer.
Well, we'll work on that, but yeah.
That's a totally separate decision, but yes.
Well, I wore my yellow belt afterwards because I felt like I wanted people to still know that I was still on that path. That was still my goal. So,
sure. No, that's fair. I think that's valid.
I took my squire's belt off for the year, and I took it back when I stepped down. For me. It's not saying anybody has to do that, but
no. And I appreciate you sharing that position, Ashildr, because I hadn't really considered it from that point of view. So that gives me a lot to think about.
So this live feed question is going to be from me, because you actually mentioned something that I think deserves to be covered here, which is non-peers sitting the throne. Because I've seen some that tried to wear their squire's belt or their protege belt once after they won, and you'll often see their peer or another peer running behind them with a black belt to pull that one off and put the other one on right quick. Would any of you like to speak to that, since you were all non-peers when you first won, even if you've gotten a patent later?
my knight at the time took back my squire's belt as we stepped up. And he felt that it was inappropriate for us to be in a relationship while I outranked him. So he took it back. I didn't have to decide, and I don't know what I would have done.
Again, Glen Ree, Duchess Caroline, belt came off the minute Robert won, and her explanation was, as heirs and crown, you are a member of every order and every peerage in the kingdom. So the yellow belt in my case was not necessary, because you were an honorary member of all of those orders. And then I chose not to put it back on when we stepped down because of many reasons, but mostly because I didn't feel I had a connection with my peer anymore, and I was getting better care taken of me by my local peers.
Matt, anything to add?
Not really. I mean, I don't think anyone came and asked me to take it off. I know Christiana, my peer, she kind of explained it. I had actually never even thought about it. I don't think I even had a black belt with me whenever we won the first time. And then, of course, the second time I understood what needed to happen. But I think that the thought process is pretty cut and dry for people. You don't want to be in fealty to anyone else when you are, at the top of the food chain per se. And so, but I didn't feel bad putting it back on. And Christiana bought me a little thing that was from her, so that I could wear it and kind of still symbolize that we had a relationship, but that I wasn't, in fealty to her or in service to her or working underneath her, whatever terminology you want to use.
You guys killed this tonight, by the way. That's it for the live feed questions. Awesome. You guys knocked this out of the park.
So speaking of killing it, is there anything that you think we've missed in our questions that you'd like to cover? This is your shot. Feel free to take it.
No, I think you guys are doing a great job at when we lost you for a little bit. I was telling Ulrich that got your engagement of people with this this format has been so refreshing, and I think that you're going to find that people are starting to come back a little bit quicker because of what you guys are doing. You're trying not only with this how stuff works, but also with your going over the Crown List videos. I've been watching those with His Majesty, and I know that there's a lot of people from other kingdoms that are watching them, and we can't thank you enough for doing this. I know it helps you feel better engaged and included, but all of your questions have been on point. And I told His Majesty, I was like, so this patent question, should I answer it? And he was like, well, of course you should. And he's like, what do you think? And I told him, and And he said, well, say that. And I was like, but I have other thoughts. He was like, well, say those other thoughts, And
Absolutely.
I would encourage you guys to do more of those things for sure. Even that might make things a little bit uncomfortable. I feel like people probably want to know the answers to those questions.
Right. Well, and everybody comes from a different set of experiences. I mean, I never would have considered Ashild's experience and Ashild's opinion because I don't have the same experiences that she has. And so now when we get done with this, I'm going to go call my friends in the Outlands and say, hey, how does this work with you? And that sort of thing. And I'm going to call my friends in Callantyre and say, hey, call my friends of Trimaris, hey, because I never considered it. And, I came at this from my exposure to the patent argument, which was, for royal peers. And so, dang it, they want their patent. And so that's where I come from. So, but realizing that this is not just a Meridian issue, but a society issue it's eye-opening.
Thank you so much. We're not going to shy away from this question, Your Majesty. Absolutely not. This is really the first spot where we've had a chance to cover that. But the next 4 shows cover the peerages in Meridian, so there'll be more statements that'll be controversial, or not. I don't mean necessarily controversial, but will be not even really contentious, but emotional in some ways. So the next thing we're supposed to do is shout outs, but I just got a message that I'm gonna bust our plan and read. It's called "The Inspiring Rose" by Timothy of Bennington. To say that a rose inspires is like saying the sun shines bright, whilst ignoring its warmth and energy, its nourishment and light. For a rose is much more than an inspiration. This I know is true. The roses I've seen hold love and strength, compassion and virtue. Please forgive my bad reading. Wisdom, honor, tenacity, great skill in kingdom's lore, loyalty, grace, temperance, patience, and so much more. The rose who stood beside me as I fought in her great honor, she knew the stakes were more than just glory thrown upon her. She knew that she must be a rock for kingdom strong and firm. She knew she must be committed all throughout her term. She knew that she must honor wisdom just as much as might. She knew the value of taking counsel and heeding good insight. She knew she must be the judge of deeds, both good and wrong. She knew that she would wear a symbol regarded over long. She knew that she would come to days of tumult and discord. She knew that she would need to be a pillar for her Lord. She knew that she would wield great honor, but must not see it stained. She knew that she must stand in grace and never let it wane. To say that she inspires seems so trite when I reflect upon the great many talents that these roses must beget. To know the time to show their petals, and when to bear their thorns, when to smile in revelry, and when to bow and mourn. This inspiration true, all of these things that make a rose, and how we'd be without their graces, only heaven knows. So I did not do that justice. Timothy's words are much better than mine, but that popped up, and I absolutely had to read it. All right. So anyway, So we'll all answer these questions. These are the shout outs. Other shows that you happen to watch, people doing good things in the kingdom that you'd like to point out, anything like that. Your Majesty, as high on the totem pole, you get to go first.
Oh goodness. I want to give shout outs to, are we doing like individuals or
anything you want to say? It can be a book you're reading, it can be someone doing a show, it can be someone who's just doing good stuff in the kingdom.
I want to give a shout out to the MOCs because they are continuing to drive the children's activities even in the face of totally virtual activities. They're continuing to put forth pen feathers, which is really, really a cool thing. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to my husband, Timothy, who's over there making silly faces at me. And he makes beautiful poems about roses. And anyways, but for real, the MOCs of the kingdom, they're doing a fantastic job.
Your Excellency Ælfgifu?
I would like to give a personal shout out to all the kingdom level officers, particularly the RUM coordinators and the Minister of Arts and Sciences, who happens to be my bestie, Mrs. Gwenvin. She, because she's a teacher, she's had to learn a lot of stuff about virtual anyway, but it has been really hard for her, and she and her deputies are doing a fantastic job in trying to keep the arts and sciences community working in a virtual environment, which really isn't the best for weaving and all the things that need to really be tactile, and they have really kept the arts and sciences community interested. And actually at this last fair, several folks who had never entered anything before were motivated enough to enter. And I just think that's really, really awesome. This is a unique time we're in. And, the SCA is struggling to not die because we're not in person and seeing each other and remembering that we really love each other. All we're seeing is what we see on social media, which isn't always our best side. And so I think the folks like Graf Ulrich and His Excellency Erik, who are spending their own time and their own effort to try to keep us all connected. I think those are the folks who need the shout out.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Your Excellency Ashildr?
Just a couple more people. I agree with all the ones everybody's mentioned. Tiff with the Clovers, Pixie, Wendy, TJ, Maudie, who have really done a bunch of getting, and Ellen, Mr. Sullen, who's basically put the whole kingdom on Zoom, Genevieve, everybody who has pivoted and took a on-site camping hobby and made it an online Zoom, classes, teaching, everything. It's been amazing.
Excellent. Your Excellency Erik?
I'd like to give a shout out to all the heavy and light fighters out there who aren't getting to do what they love and haven't gotten to do it for what feels like a very long time, but are still doing what they can to stay in shape and work on the things that they need to work on, so that when the day comes that we can meet each other back on the field, that everybody's going to do it in a safe and responsible manner. And I'd also like to give a big shout out to Dixie and Lothar picking the best child's name ever.
Ask what their girl's name was going to be. Just ask them.
And congratulations to those two, by the way, in the newest Meridian, young Erik.
Yay. Except I think Roxy the dog is going to take him over.
Yeah.
All right, so I have my standard shout outs, which are some online shows, Between Two Peers, Ask the Knights, SCA Coaches Corner, I watch on a regular basis. The latest one I've added to my list of shows that I watch is Calibarter has he has several shows, but the one that I'm super interested in, he's got one that's called I believe it's called What Makes a Night. It's hosted by him and Duke Sean from Artemisia, I believe, and it's not a total. It's an overall, almost a corpora down look at the requirements to be a knight. It's got some different points of view from some of the things that we're used to here in Meridies, but it's all valid and all useful. Take a minute to check that out. But that's my big other call out. So I think that's going to be. Oh, yeah, no, that's it. I'm good.
Okay. We would like to thank our guests, Her Royal Majesty Ysmay, and Their Excellency Ælfgifu and Ashildr for joining us. And we'd also like to thank Her Ladyship Jessica of Osprey for being an amazing showrunner.
Yes.
And Her Excellency Katerina for keeping us on time, which is probably not the easiest thing in the world. And finally, we'd really like to thank you, our audience, for tuning in here and spending your time with us tonight.
I mean, really, Jessica, and you guys all killed these answers, but Jessica killed this whole. She set this whole new format up in like 3 hours this afternoon. When she, I was like, "Hey, do you want to bust this out this week instead of next week?" She was like, "Sure, I can do that," because it's Jessica.
Jessica is awesome.
Even with technological Luddites who were completely confused.
She's the bomb. All right, so join us here next week for The Chivalry, where we'll be joined by His Majesty Timothy and Sir Kit, where we'll discuss how chivalry meetings are run in Meridies and procedures, and also what's discussed in them. And some of the things, we're going to bust some myths and some misconceptions about what people think the knights think. And you'll learn some good info there. So please join us here next week.
If you're watching live and you'd like to join us after the show for a chat or to hang out a little bit, then watch the Hound and Stag main page, the announcement page. We'll take a little break, and then about 5 minutes after the show goes off the air, Graf and Katerina will post a link to the Zoom, yes, the Zoom, and we'll hang out and chat for about a half an hour.
All right, so finally, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe somewhere down here. I can't remember which side. I think it's over there. Yeah. And then if you're watching on Facebook, don't forget to like us up here in the corner and subscribe, share, get the word out, let more people see us. All right.
Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
I have a question real quick.
Sure. We're still alive, but go for it.
What? I looked you up on YouTube and I couldn't find you.
It's under Hound and Stag.
Yeah, I know. I searched Hound and Stag and it didn't show up.
We're still alive. I will